Harley Davidson Hummers? What are those? Catch you inside.
RevelatorAlf.
Hello, welcome to RevelatorAlf. Hope you're enjoying the channel and the series of videos. Please like, share, subscribe, leave loads of comments below. Check out the website RevelatorAlf.com. So in this video I'm talking about the Harley Davidson motorcycles, the Hummers. Now, if you've never heard of Harley Davidson Hummers, well, this is it. They were produced from 1948 to 1966. They were small displacement engines, single-cylinder engines, and they also had similar motorcycles produced in other parts of the world as well. Now, the Hummer was a particular motorcycle produced from 1955 to 1959. However, the Hummer generic name is applied to motorcycles, single-cylinder, two-stroke motorcycles produced from 1948 to 1966. Now, after the Second World War, because of war reparations, Harley Davidson took the designs of a German motorcycle, which was the DKW RT125cc motorcycle, and then they developed the Hummer. Now, also, the RT125 designs were also taken by British manufacturers and also Russian manufacturers or Soviet Union manufacturers as well at the time. The BSA Bantam was based upon that design, and the MMZ Z1A Moskva, or later known as the Minsk from the Soviet Union, was also based on that as well. Now, Harley Davidson produced, in this era, lots of different single-cylinder, two-stroke engines. So the first motorcycle to produce was the Model S125. Now, that was produced from 1948 to 1952. That was a 125cc engine, single-cylinder, two-stroke, produced in 3 horsepower. It had a 3-speed foot-changing gearbox, and it had a suspension girder front end, but it had these rubber cords that actually kept it all together. And from the 1960s onwards, it was actually really hard to find those cords or make those cords. So then it was eventually replaced by a telescopic front end. Now, there was a 2-seat option of the Model S125, but unfortunately there wasn't enough power in the engine to actually carry 2 people effectively. Now, it was powered by a 6-volt electrical system, and it just had a bulb and reflector headlights as well, very similar to all motorcycles of the era. Now, reportedly, over 10,000 motorcycles were sold in the first 7 months or so of 1947, but although it was selling well, especially in the young who were looking for cheap, efficient motorcycling, it wasn't really deemed as a success and to go forward. Now, from 1953 to 1959, Harley Davidson produced the Model 165. Now, essentially, this was an upgrade of the Model S125, but it just had a 165cc engine. Now, from 1955 to 1959, we have the official Hummer motorcycle. Now, this was a stripped-down basic model. It was using the B-type engine that they developed at the time, and it went back to the 125cc engine. Now, Hummer, the name came from a prolific salesman from Omaha, Nebraska, and his name was Dean Hummer, so they named the motorcycle after him. Now, this was sold as a very basic motorcycle, 2-stroke, single-cylinder, 125cc engine, no battery because it was magneto ignition, didn't have any turn lights, didn't have any tail lights, so it was very, very basic. Now, from 1960 to 61, they upgraded everything and went with the Super 10. Now, the Super 10 replaced the Model 165 and the Hummer. Now, the Super 10 used a 165cc variant of the B engine, of which that engine was used as the 125 version of the Hummer. Now, in 1962 only, they produced an off-road variant called the Ranger. Now, the Ranger was as basic as they come, no front headlight, no front fender, and this really was just built for off-road fun and adventures. Now, some of the details here are that it came with a 12-tooth countershaft gear and an 84-tooth rear sprocket with an extra low final drive ratio of 7.0 to 1. This really was for the off-road world. Now, rumour has it at the time that the Ranger was only produced because Harley Davidson had some leftover 165 engines and they just wanted to use up those engines. So they thought they'd just produce this Ranger, sell off those engines, and they can move on to the next project. Okay, so the next motorcycle that came after the Ranger was the Pacer. Now, the Pacer was the direct replacement for the Super 10. It used the bigger now 175cc variant of the B engine. Now, the Pacer was produced from 1962 to 1965, but in 1963 saw a major redesign of its frame. Now, the rear suspension had an L shape on the swing arm, which acted like a spring as well, so that assisted in the dampening on the rear. Now, from 1962 to 1965, they also produced the Scat. Now, the Scat was a kind of dual-purpose motorcycle, and that was based upon this Pacer as well. High-mounted front fender, higher handlebars, and softer springs for the seat as well. And it also had the higher-mounted scrambler style exhaust. Now, the Scat also got the Pacer's 1963 redesigned frame as well, and the extra low final drive that was on the Ranger for the off-road world was also made available as an option on this motorcycle too. And finally, 1966, Harley Davidson produced the Bobcat. And this was the very last motorcycle based upon the original German RT125. It was the only motorcycle of that type offered in 1966, and it actually proved to be the last year of production too. It was based upon the 63 to 65 Pacer frame, and it was very noticeable because it had ABS resin bodywork in a one piece that covered the full length of the motorcycle. Now, this one-piece resin bodywork covered the tank, covered the seat and the rear fender, and this seat was mounted on top of that. Now, out of all the RT125 motorcycles in the Hummer era, this was the only motorcycle that had two seats available to it. Well, there you go. So that is the Hummer range of motorcycles from 1948 to 1966. Predominantly single cylinder engine, two-stroke, low displacement engines, really fueling the post-war market for cheap, efficient motorcycles, really appealing to the young rider who would then take those bikes, make them their own, and then once they could, then they would then go up to the larger displacement engines. And this possibly fueled the riders for the 1960s and 70s as well. But it was that Hummer generation of riders who are actually fueling the future generations of Harley Davidson riders as well. Anyway, hope you found that interesting. More information is on the website and the Harley Parley page as well. If you check on the links in there, and you'll find all this information there as well. Lots of pictures there as well of extra motorcycles for your viewing pleasure. So please like, share, subscribe, leave comments below. If you know of any extra information about these motorcycles, please leave it in the comments below. Let us know if you actually own one of these motorcycles as well, and what you think of them, and what details you can give of those as well. That would be really useful for everybody to read as well. Right, catch you on the next video, whenever that is, and I say, go check out the website RevelatorAlf.com on the Harley Parley page. The links are in the description below, and you'll get a lot more information, not only on these, but lots of other Harley Davidson motorcycles too. Cheers now. RevelatorAlf.